I watched a few of Tim's videos and they're super inspirational. Really cool guy. I worked with him in Montana. He started posting some cool stream of consciousness themed videos about his story and his vegan lifestyle, which is awesome. I think he might have been vegetarian when I knew him years ago. Anyway, he's a really cool guy. He's such a nice guy, such a sweet guy. Doesn't say a bad word about anybody, and that's so beautiful. Anyway, he's been like flaring up more on my Facebook for posting a lot of these videos on YouTube.
Cool. Good to go.
Good to go. Can we do bacon hands?
Yeah.
I'm into it. Okay.
Gonna be drinking tea casually here.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, be pensive in the background. It's nice. Hello, welcome to my channel. I am Miranda, also known as Uprooted Foodie. If you haven't been here before, I talk about everything from veganism to travel to everything in between. Today, I have a very special friend with me. His name is Tim. Say hi, Tim.
Hi.
Tim and I just did a collaboration on his channel. You should go check it out. He is listed as Tim Brogan, right?
Yep.
Tim Brogan. He's very inspirational. He also talks about traveling, and go check him out. Go subscribe and watch part 1 of this video on his channel. This is part 2. Cool. Tim's channel covers his zest for travel, personal growth, health, and wellness. He has a free listening project that's incredible, and his brand, Top Self-Development, encourages finding your purpose and sharing it with clarity.
You don't necessarily have to have a plan, you just have to be committed to not having one.
Our shared inspiration from one another got us to decide that we should meet up after all this time, and sparked this collaboration. So hang out for a few minutes while we delve into our history of veganism, meeting an AmeriCorps, traveling, and the YouTuber lifestyle.
Honey.
Let's just hype it.
We did it. Yeah, you were hyped. It's okay, stay hyped. Stay hyped.
So like I said, we just finished a collab on Tim's channel. We talked about AmeriCorps, which is how we kind of were introduced to each other. We talked about traveling before and after that, and how our lives have been affected by that. And now we're going to start getting into veganism. So we're both vegan. And how long would you say you've been vegan, Tim?
I have oscillated between different types of eating over the past 5 years, since I was about 20, and I would say vegan for the last 3, and plant interested, if not completely vegan, on and off for 2 years prior to that. So I would say I became plant interested around the time when I was like 20 or 21, and then it was a slow crawl to being fully adopting the plant-based diet over the last 3 years.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What got you interested in it?
So it was kind of out of necessity. I was experiencing some health struggles, and I was this 20-year-old, energetic, athletic, pretty much never had a problem in my life type of kid. Like I maybe fractured my wrist snowboarding, or, you know, just had sprained an ankle, but I never had any serious health issues up until that point. And I started to just feel crappy. I had some bad acid reflux, chronic acid reflux that was, at a certain point, became debilitating, and I had to find a solution. So it was out of necessity. I was more interested in self-healing than I was in following the advice that I was given, which was basically, hey, take this medication and it should relieve your symptoms and you can just be on it forever. You don't really have to change much about your life, but just take the medication.
Yeah.
So I didn't really buy into that, and so that's when I started going on YouTube, and and just checking and looking up all sorts of information about other people who are sharing similar stories of having a health struggle and finding some sort of healing through lifestyle and not a very drastic intervention like medication. And through that, I started learning about things like juicing and blending and a plant-based diet and veganism and the importance and the benefits of that, both for yourself and for the world. But it started out as for health reasons, and then it became bigger in scope when I started learning more about it. And that was my entry point in.
Awesome. Would you say that you at first like didn't believe that it was something that could fix health problems? Did you feel like, nah, were you skeptical at all?
It was sort of this black, it was like this switch went off. Once I experienced a health problem, I was open to anything that was going to help. So
sure.
It was like overnight I somehow became aware of things, the solutions that were all around me that I had never noticed. For example, like in middle school, you know, like when 2:15 school gets out on Friday, right? What does everyone do? We all go downtown. And on the street going downtown from my high school or my middle school, there's a yoga studio that we pass every time going down, taking that walk. And for years and years and years, I walked by this place and I never once remember noticing that there was a yoga place there. I just had no awareness of yoga, no awareness of the benefits of it, until one day it just became clear. I just saw it. And it was the same thing when I went on YouTube and people were talking about diet and nutrition as a lifestyle intervention and a way to solve problems. It made so much sense to me. Like, wow, like what I eat obviously has an effect on my health. I just saw it. So I don't know if it was a slow crawl of like just getting more and more open to it over the years, but it was also like I just began to see things more clearly.
Cool. Was YouTube a part of your initial research into the vegan world, or was that an influence for going vegan at all?
YouTube was the place where I first found out about it. So other than just examples of people that I had met, actually a funny story is that Miranda, you are actually, and you know this, but you are the first friend that I had that was vegan.
Aww.
And like it was through meeting people like you who just seemed so open-minded about it and seemed like this was such an important part of your life, and you spoke so highly of it. And I think at the time for me, part of me, it might have been hard for me to believe, and even at that time it didn't fully hit me that the solution you were living could be applied into my life.
Sure.
But without those examples of non-judgmental people who are introducing you to these things, I probably would not be where I am today. So
crazy,
thank you for that, for being my first influence on that.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because I was vegan before AmeriCorps. So for me, it's plant interested for me was kind of overnight because of a friend, and I'll probably do a video on this at some point in general, but it started about 11 years ago, 11 and a half, and I bounced between vegan and vegetarian. So that was something that I had already been interested in AmeriCorps. And it's funny because I remember, obviously, you know, you cook with your crew on the trail and you cook with your friends when you go over to each other's houses, because your only friends in the area are your AmeriCorps friends. So I went over to your house sometimes because that was kind of like the dude house. I was friends with all those guys. Yeah. So it was cool. And we would cook a lot over there. And I, you know, had to mention a couple times, yeah, I'm vegan, so like I probably won't partake in this, or I want to cook that, and I'm sure it came up, but I don't really remember it too much. And I don't remember it being like ill-received either. I do vaguely remember you might have asked me some questions, and I'm glad to know that I was pretty open about, you know, not like a judgmental person.
I remember being curious. So I think at that time, it had been cracked for me. Like the awareness and the open-mindedness, I had cracked open my mind enough to receive this information. And it wasn't until a few years later where these practices became fully ingrained, but it was really those early influences that made a huge difference. And I mean, some of them were people I found on YouTube, but it was a string of people that I met, again, just like you, who came over, they offered to cook, and they said, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I eat, this is what I don't eat, and just, you offered it up and allowed us to, receive what we wanted from that offering. And I actually do remember this funny thing. We got back, the job we had required us to go away for long periods of time in the woods and live out of basically a temporary camp. And when we'd come back into town, we'd be dirty, tired, and craving all the foods that we hadn't been able to eat out in this experience. You know how it is. And then I remember you saying at one point, like, everyone's talking about how they want a hamburger and they're craving this and that. You're like, I'm just craving kale.
I do remember that. I do remember that. That's so funny. Seriously, I can't believe I forgot that. I remember that because you held on to that a few times when we saw each other after that happened. You held on to that. That's funny.
It's such a great example because at the time I was like, come on, you're telling me that's what you're craving right now? And I couldn't believe it then, but now I'm the exact same way. I go on a long hiking trip, backpacking trip, or something that puts me out of eating in the way I normally do, and what am I craving? I'm craving leafy green salads and just the healthiest foods now because I've adopted that diet and that lifestyle.
Well, and vegan on the road, another video I want to do sometime. Sometimes you don't eat so well, and especially even in America where, you're on the road, and when you stop at a gas station, you get a snack while you can if your food is all in the back and packed up on a long drive, and so you eat garbage pretty much, like Gardetto's, or not Gardetto's, Chex Mix is vegan, but that doesn't mean I should be eating it like on the road or something.
Oreos are also vegan too.
Right.
A lot of junk food is.
Yeah, that's another great video idea. I definitely remember craving kale, and that's so funny and specific because 2 summers ago, I actually worked in Colorado, which is where we are right now. We're in my new house, subletting it, and it's gorgeous. So we're taking advantage of the beautiful art.
It's freaking amazing. The
Shout
whole
out to my
place is
landlords.
amazing.
And so when I worked in Colorado 2 summers ago, I remember I was at such a high elevation. I was in Silverthorne and Dillon, and that's higher than Denver, if you don't know. And for some reason, I was working out as far as like a musician working out, so I was like playing my trumpet all day, every day, and burning calories that way, versus like hiking and stuff. But I still would come home at the end of the day and I wanted so much kale. I ate so much kale then too. And so like, I must be something about just like when I'm working really hard, maybe at elevation or maybe just in general, like kale for me is like what I crave. I don't know.
It's probably the most rugged of the vegetables,
True.
Of the leafy green variety.
Yes.
It just looks more rugged than, romaine.
Yes. It's just like satisfying too. Yeah, it's just good. I don't know how people can hate on it, but I like it. Anyway.
What I learned is that your cravings and what you desire will change when you form a habit. It's really, everyone's heard this. It's really only informing the habit in those first few weeks there. You're going to have those old cravings, and then soon enough they're gone, and you're craving the things that make you feel good, because your body knows when it feels good, and it wants to feel good as much as possible, and it will start to remind you, like, hey, we ate that thing that felt good, put more of that in there if you want to continue feeling good.
Yeah.
It just makes a lot of sense.
And I love that you admit that it's because you had some like physical issues that you were trying to cope with, and therefore you are always kind of going back to that root cause and thinking like, okay, what does my body want? What does my body need? And I think that that's awesome because it's different for everybody why we get into it. And for me, it was just kind of freaked out about the whole industry of meat. So I was just kind of like, I never ate it a lot growing up, and I don't eat it now for some reason. And it just makes kind of sense that I don't want to, because in the back of my head, I think I kind of knew it wasn't as pretty of a picture as it's made to be. So Tim mentioned that I was the first person who was a vegan he could call a friend. So it was kind of like, oh, what, real life, like real person, here's how they live, somebody I know and who I interact with on a pretty regular basis at this time in my life, you know, that's the lifestyle they live. For me, the influence that I've gotten from you is actually YouTube, because I remember a couple years ago, I think it was 2016, maybe end of 2015, and all of a sudden, you know, Tim's face is kind of popping up in YouTube videos on my Facebook feed, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, maybe I'll kind of check that out. And so I was like, I remember Tim, and I want to hear what he has to say. And it was a mixture of the YouTube and the YouTube. It was a mixture of YouTube and Facebook information from you that you had kind of briefly hung out with a pretty famous vegan YouTuber now, but before she had kind of blown up. And so you had been promoting her because she had blown up a little more, and I was like, oh, I should check this person out too. So kind of getting to know you and that world of YouTube, and then other vegan YouTubers or influencers in your circle, it was just kind of, it was really eye-opening to me that there was this whole world of just people on YouTube doing vegan things. And like, I had already been vegan for so long, but I just never felt like I had a community, I guess. So finding that virtual community was really pivotal in my life. So that's just kind of like the influence you've had on me, and I really like appreciate that.
Yeah. It's amazing just to know that at some level something that I did or posted about had an actual impact on someone's life. And that's sort of this weird paradox of being someone who creates content online, because sometimes you don't see that ripple directly unless somebody you personally know tells you. Not a lot of people reach out and tell you exactly the impact they had on you, so it can sort of it's assumed, right? But then when you get a clear example of like an impact has been had, it's important for me, and it's motivating for me to keep going. So
yeah, no, I mean, at the time it motivated me and inspired me, but I think I was still in a place where I was too shy, too timid to kind of run with it. And I was a little timid. I started filming a little bit, but I didn't really have my own voice yet. I couldn't find my footing. And then after that, it kind of died down because I didn't think I had the best equipment or the best, you know, aesthetically pleasing places to film, or the right topics or any of that. But if I've learned anything through watching YouTube, it's start where you are and let it just happen if it happens. And do it because you like it, not because it's gonna get anywhere even. So that's inspiring too.
Yeah, I think your impact will be scaled according to your inspiration, right? So it's what you're bringing into it. You're gonna see your impact scaled and expanded and reaching more people when you're basically ready for it, when you're inspired enough to actually give back to this new group of people that's now aware of you. And I think it happens in perfect timing, and it's cool now to be on this YouTube vegan healthy living expression, self-expression journey. And again, like, it all stemmed from two people, me from the East Coast, you from the Midwest,
right,
at a point in their life that drew them to this experience in Montana, an AmeriCorps experience that we both somehow decided to sign up for, and that shared connection launched us into a longer journey of that we're on now, and
of exploring and of exploring veganism and just the country and hopefully the world, and just like exploring so much while we can and finding all the inspiration and joy from that we can. Yes. Well, this has been awesome. This has been really fun. Thank you for coming out to collaborate, Tim.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah, Tim was in Flagstaff, and he just came from San Diego before that, and yeah, a fellow traveler. I love it so much.
I love it.
Yes. Well, again, check out Tim's channel.
Instagram is timothy.brogan, and then on YouTube is Tim Brogan. And yeah, just I'd like to say thank you, Miranda. Thank you to everyone out there, and just travel, have new experiences, follow your dream, follow your heart. That's what brought me here to collaborate with Miranda. Just really wanted to be around a like-minded, fellow, inspired individual, and that's why I'm here. It might not always be perfect, but it'll take you exactly where you need to go.
Yes, and say yes, because I have trouble with that sometimes, but like Tim was gently pursuing this opportunity, and I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity. I should say yes to this. And we hadn't seen each other in almost 6 years. It's crazy. But again, go check out the part 1 to this video to learn more about AmeriCorps and travel and our history with that. And Tim's information will be linked below. And follow us both on social media. And have a great day.
We did it.
Thank you. Oh, hang on.
Yes. Cool.
Bye.